Paddy, welcome to the Salvation Show. I've got 30 questions here and you have to answer as many of them as you can in 1 minute's time.
Oh, this is not starting good. Oh, no.
Okay, so what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, that is a good one. I'd love to be a professional musician, to be perfectly honest with you.
What's your favourite word?
Absolutely.
Your mastermind topic?
Mastermind topic would be probably the novels of Pat McCabe.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Drummers.
What turns you off?
Drummers. Sound check and drummers drives me bananas. I hope you're not a drummer.
Do you believe in karma?
Absolutely.
Android or iPhone?
Android.
What sound or noise do you love?
Jimi Hendrix.
Your hangover cure?
No, I've been trying to avoid them. Being in court at 10 o'clock in the morning.
TV guilty pleasure?
TV guilty pleasure at the minute is The Last of Us.
And that's it? That's all you've got?
Is that 30?
You've done well in a minute.
Take it away.
Anyway, you're all very welcome to the Salvation Show podcast. I'm Paddy Mac, and as you can see, I'm on my own today. Sean is in bed with a virus. I think that's her name anyway. And Alvaro couldn't be here due to family commitments. So I have a very, very special guest. This gentleman, I'm a fan of this guy. He is a very well-known musician and solicitor, and I want to introduce you to the great, the one and only Paddy Goodwin. Paddy, you're very welcome.
Thanks very much, Paddy. And I'm a big fan of yours now.
Yeah, you only say that because it's true. But Paddy's here to talk about, Paddy, you have a new album out at the moment.
Yeah.
You had a great night on Saturday night.
Fantastic night.
And lots of videos and everything. But we've done this on radios, but I'd like people to see you and talk about it. But tell me about Paddy Goodwin.
Well, Paddy Goodwin is something of a dichotomy, is what I'd say, because I think I may have said this to the radio. In my day job, I'm a lawyer, which is very pressurised most of the time. But to get away from that pressure, I love playing music. I've loved playing music since about 1976, and I put together this album, which is my first album. Somebody said to me earlier on in the court that if you keep producing them at this rate, you might get to a second album. You never know. But I'm just having the best a crack out of having this album out. The reaction to it has just been astounding, Paddy. It's just
a lot of people have taken it on board, a lot of radio stations and a lot of press coverage.
Yeah.
And especially the one you're a fan of, the Musical Express.
The Hotpress actually gave us a 9-star review, which is astounding. I mean, I was hoping for a good review, but 9 stars. The only other people that got 9-star reviews in the current Hot Press are Elvis Costello and Burt Bacharach.
Wow.
So if I'm up with them, I'm quite happy.
But do you know what really, really, I think, stood out to people? When you overtook the number 1 slot of Harry Styles.
Yeah, I'm never going to stop mouthing about that now for the rest of my life, to be perfectly honest.
How did you feel when you seen it?
It was just incredible, because the thing was, Paddy, I actually didn't know that the album was for sale on iTunes. I actually didn't know. A friend of mine had texted me around 11:30 on the Monday morning saying, "Oh, I bought your album. It's brilliant. It's great." And I was thinking, how could he have bought the album? I didn't realise that the album was actually for sale on iTunes. And about an hour or two later, somebody else texted me saying, "You're number 3 in the iTunes charts." Well, I couldn't believe it. And then some time later, I became number 1, which was just astounding. I mean, it's something that I never even envisaged, because I didn't even know it was up there, you know? But it was great.
But it's a great feeling, isn't it?
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah, but to let people know that Paddy, of course, is a lawyer, and you live in Drogheda, but you're from Clones.
I'm originally from Clones.
Yeah. And the great story we have to tell the people that tune into the Salvation Show. How did you become a solicitor?
Well, I arrived in Drogheda in a kind of roundabout fashion. I went to college in Trinity, and I did 2 very useful subjects, Irish and philosophy. And I would have graduated around 1985, 85. And at that time, I actually wanted to be a producer in RTE. And I got on a panel to become a producer because I'd run for the Trinity College Students' Union. And that was always a great way of getting in to RTE. Anya Lawler was one of my contemporaries, and Jerry Ryan had been in Students' Union previous to that. And there are a lot of people got in that way. And I remember I had Ian Wilson. Do you remember Ian Wilson that did the Dave Fanning show? Ian Wilson and Bill Whelan were me referees looking for the job in RTE, but there was no job. So I set up a record shop. A friend of mine who was working on the Ents with me was saying, Drogheda needs a kind of rock and roll record shop. So I set that up in the summer of 85. And that went fantastically well until HMV and Virgin set up in Dublin. And then the turnover went down by about half. Yeah. And a lot of people, you remember, I'm sure everybody in Dundalk was the same, an awful lot of people were emigrating, whether they could do it illegally to America or legally to London. So a hell of a lot of people were going to London. In fact, I worked in London after I went bust in the record shop at one stage, and I counted 72 people in the pub that I knew from Drogheda.
Unreal, isn't it?
Unbelievable. Now, that's about, that's 1988 or so. But what happened was I went bust, and I was sharing a house with a guy who was a solicitor, and I said, well, if that boy can do it, I'll do it. And
was he a dope?
No, he was no. But he had actually gone through the, to do it properly. You go doing a bloody law degree for starters, or you do. There was a 2-year course you could do in Rathmines at the time that you could. It was another way of getting a law degree, and I didn't have the money to do that, and I simply went home to Clonus, and I got the books, and I studied 8 to 10 hours a day, and eventually I got through. But while I was doing that, I was actually playing. I was playing six nights. Now, back in the day, you could play six nights. In fact, we could have played 7 nights. Yeah. But we wanted Monday off. We used to have what we called a Mad Monday.
The Monday Club.
Yeah. So I learned the stuff myself, and I'm sure I'm the only lawyer that you can hear saying that. Be perfectly blunt,
Yeah, but there is there are a lot of people who are going into law would have to study and do the courses and do everything. It was amazing that you said, I can do that. What if he had been a plumber?
Might have done the same thing. Might have done the same thing. You don't know,
here's Paddy the plumber. Yeah. Not Paddy the lawyer.
Yeah, it could well be. The other thing, Paddy, is that I had no relatives at all involved in law, so I really was
on this side of it.
Yeah, not yeah, exactly. But it was tough, even having got the exams to get an apprenticeship. But I mean, it's all worked out very well.
It worked out fantastic. Like if anyone said to me, Paddy Goodwin, I said, oh yeah, Paddy the solicitor and the musician.
Yeah.
But it always comes first. But you said you were going from 1976. You've always played in bands and all that.
Yeah.
But who was your influence?
The first influence was Horslips, because Horslips were the only rock band that came anywhere near Clonus. And they used to play in Clonus quite often. And actually, in actual fact, at some stage, we were talking about the Hotpress earlier on. There was a magazine called Scene Magazine, and I was a precocious little gobshite now, to be honest. And I had an article published in Scene Magazine, a review of a Horslips gig. And they got to know me through that.
Very good.
And that's how I got to start playing support to them. Again, that'd be about 77-ish. 77.
Yeah, they were just coming to the forefront then.
Yeah.
I remember them playing in Dundalk. The first time I told you this in the radio, and there was people leaving because they thought it was a Cayley band.
Yeah.
They didn't realise it was trad rock, But then the following time they came to the Imperial, you couldn't even get up the street with the crowds.
Yeah, no, they were crazy.
They were fabulous. And I seen one of Horslips such a gig.
Two of them were Jim Lockhart, the keyboard player. Yeah. Was Jim has done a lot of stuff on the album.
Yeah.
And Barry Devlin has done
Barry Devlin. Yeah. I remember Barry, the bass player, because I always wanted to be a bass player. I still do. But I remember seeing them and I thought, oh God, I haven't seen them in a long, long while. But your influence was Horslips. Would it always your influence? You started doing more blues than
the start of it for me, the start and end of it for me to a large extent is still Johnny Feen. You know, I learned how to play the guitar simply by watching him. And by standing in front of him on the stage and trying to figure out what's he doing there. At the time I hadn't a clue what he was doing. Yeah. But, you know, now in retrospect, I know what he was. And I was very, very honoured to play alongside him. And, you know, he's played a lot of gigs with me in the last 10 or 12 years. And he's still my absolute hero. Yeah. He's just a fantastic guitar player and such a lovely fellow.
Johnny Feen, in case our listeners don't know, was the guitar player with Horslips.
Yeah.
Unbelievable player.
And you see, back then, Paddy, it's easy to play the guitar, to learn to play the guitar now because there's so much stuff. Yeah. I mean, there's nearly too much stuff on YouTube that you can learn whatever you like. Yeah. But back then, there was nothing. I mean, there was absolutely nothing, and it was just a question of looking and trying to pick out what you could. And I think I was saying to you on the radio, you know, if you had a 45, you'd bring it down to 33 and a third to try and figure out what the notes were. I mean, it was a totally different.
But isn't it amazing? I don't know when the first guitar came out, but it has never changed. But yet, everywhere you go on it, there's something different.
Yeah.
You can learn. You know, it's an amazing instrument. I know people at pianos and all this and go up, and when we look at them, you say, "Oh my God, how do you not remember where you are?" But on a guitar, you're learning. So many, like if you play a major C, there's so many ways you can play it up the board.
Yeah.
Like it never changed. And then of course the sounds that, like Gary Moore, my God Almighty, what a player!
Yeah,
you know, and the sounds together. And I know a friend of mine is unbelievable guitar player, but he doesn't use pedals.
Right.
It's just the way he cranks it.
Yeah. No. And Johnny would be the same. And for years, I never used pedals myself. I always think there's an element of smoke and mirrors when I see when I see somebody arriving in with a pedal board the size of the table there. Yeah. I automatically assume that they can't play, to be perfectly honest. You know, they need all this trickery. Well, why not just play the bloody guitar? You know.
Yeah.
But you know, through Johnny, I discovered Free, who are probably my ultimate, in terms of world bands, Free were my ultimately
classic band.
Unbelievable band. The guitar player called Paul Kossoff.
Yeah,
I just loved Paul Kossoff.
He was a great player.
He's a fantastic, you know, he's a huge hero of mine. And it's funny now, I was just this morning talking on email to his girlfriend. She's bringing out a book about him.
Oh, lovely.
And I'm doing the lawyer for it.
Oh,
yeah, which is a remarkable, you know.
Isn't that incredible? Isn't it?
He died in 1976.
Yeah,
and she's in touch with me. We play this game. I don't know if you're familiar with this thing on the phone. It's called Quiz Planet.
No.
It's a crazy game. We play that all the time. But but I'm actually looking at the proofs for the Paul Kossoff book, which may or may not come out at some stage before the end of the year, which is fun. For me, it's just such an honour.
It'd be an interesting read.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of great guitar players. I think Paul actually influenced people to buy the Les Paul, because I know there was a lot of Les Paul players, but it was the gold one.
Yeah.
You know, everybody wanted a gold. It was either gold or black.
Yeah.
And then the Sunburst came out and a few more. Now, I wouldn't be a Gibson fan myself. I'm a Fender-holic, as I'm known as.
Right, yeah.
And I love Fender guitars and that, but the sound of them. But an amazing sound, especially on All Right Now when he's on it. You know, it's classic.
Oh, incredible. And when you think how young they were, I think
very young.
I think he was 17 when All Right Now came out. I mean, he wasn't, maybe I'm wrong by a year, but he wasn't more than 18.
Yeah.
He was an incredible player. Incredible player.
Brilliant. And the guy Rogers, wasn't it?
Paul Rogers.
Paul. Yeah. And then he went on to sing with Queen when Freddie Mercury died.
Well, he went on with to form Bad Company then with Simon Kirke. And it's gas because Bad Company played in Dublin must be 8 years ago now, but one of my best mates was I mentioned him on the show the other day, in actual fact, Brian Rat Murphy. Rat was the drummer in my original band. We used to call him Rat after rat scabies from the Damned, you know. And I spent a fortune on getting these tickets, meet and greet tickets, in the O3 or whatever you call it. And we went in to get our photographs taken with Paul Rogers and Simon Kirk. And a number of years ago, for me mate's 50th birthday, I'd got him a leather jacket with Paul Kossoff on the back. And we go into this thing, and you're really just chivied in and out of the place. You know, it's just go in, get a photograph. They won't sign anything for you. It's just get the photograph and get them out as quick as you can. But when Simon Kirk, who would be my mate Rat's absolute hero as a drummer, saw Paul Kossoff, he was saying to Paul Rogers, "Hey, he's got Koss on the back of his jacket. Where do you see this, Paul?" Yeah. And it made his life. It was just incredible. Unbelievable. It was just great.
Oh, it's marvellous. But you also, we hadn't time to talk about it, but on the radio we were talking about Ronnie Lane.
Oh, I love Ronnie Lane.
But I always loved Ronnie, and unfortunately Ronnie passed away with multiple sclerosis. And very sad. Yeah.
And I don't. We didn't talk that much about Henry McCullough the other day, did we?
No. You were a big, good friend of Henry as well.
Well, I produced an album for Henry back in 2007 or 2008, and Henry used to play with Ronnie Lane, and he used to tell me these great. He loved Ronnie. I mean, people mightn't know about Henry, but Henry played at Woodstock, with Joe Cocker.
Right.
That famous version of "With a Little Help from My Friends."
Oh yeah,
that's him. Mm-hmm. He had a girlfriend, a very unknown woman from Texas called Janis Joplin.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of her.
Yeah. At one stage, ITV did a documentary on him, and he says, "It's a bad day for me now when Janis Joplin introduced me to heroin in the Chelsea Hotel."
Wow.
I kid you not, it was a bad day for him, do you know?
Yeah.
But Henry was quite remarkable because he was actually very friendly with Jimi Hendrix. And Jimi Hendrix is one of my absolute, I just adore Jimi Hendrix. And people talk about Hendrix in terms of the guitar, but I think Hendrix was a poet. I think if you look at some of those lyrics that he wrote, he was just amazing. Hendrix was amazing on so many levels. But Henry then subsequently played with Paul McCartney. He played with Wings. He played on Live and Let Die. So he was a major star back then. But of all the stuff that Henry did, he loved playing with Ronnie Lane. They had a fantastic band. Yeah. And Ronnie's dobro was up for sale in Bonhams in London, and I was actually over in London for a week, and I wasn't there to look to go and buy the dobro, but just happened to be there, and I saw this auction coming up, so I got the concierge from the hotel that I was staying at to say, our Mr. Goodwin would like to see this guitar. And talk to your guitar expert, and that was grand. And I made an appointment with the guitar expert because they had the wrong price on it. They had it priced at $1,000, and I knew it wasn't worth $1,000. It was worth $10,000. But if I could have bought it for $1,000, sure. Yeah. But I thought, well, I'll have a look at this guitar anyway because he's me hero. We'll go, and if I could buy it for $1,000, I'll buy it. But I think they've got the wrong price, and I wanted to meet their guitar expert. So they arranged an interview with me, and was going to go down on the Wednesday or the Thursday, whatever it was. No, I think it was the Wednesday. And then I looked at the catalogue again, and I said, yeah, I'll tell you what we'll do. There's another guitar for sale there. And got the concierge in the hotel to ring up, and Mr. Goodwin would like to see the guitar number 85 in the catalogue. Absolutely no problem. So that's grand. And I got a call in the hotel, and they're saying they want to rearrange your interview from the Wednesday to the Thursday. And I was saying, no, I can't. I'm going back to Dublin Thursday. I can't do that. It'll have to be. And they said, look, we can't. The guitar expert won't be there, but come along anyway. So that was that, and arrived down at Bonhams. Have you ever been in Bonhams? It's remarkable. It's down near Harrods.
No, I've heard of it, but never.
Well, you go in the front door, and there's a Gatling gun, which was going for like a Gatling gun from the American Civil War, just straight out of The Last Samurai,
Yeah.
and perhaps it might have been in The Last Samurai, and there was a Steinway piano that was worth probably $500,000 in the front hall,
Wow.
And you go in and they brought me into this office, and this very nicely spoken girl from the home counties said, Mr. Goodwin, there's a catalogue. And I thought, this is great. I'm quids in now already because the catalogue's 50 quid. And she said, would you like a coffee or something? I said, no. She said, well, I'll be back with the 2 guitars presently. I said, that's very nice. Thanks very much. So she came in and she put one guitar on the table and she put one on the floor, and she said, now, Mr. Goodwin, which of these guitars would you care to play now? I said, well, what's this one on the table? And she said, that's Mr. Hendrix's guitar. I said, well, it's on the table, sure, we'll have to take it out and have a go with it. Yeah. So it was Hendrix's guitar.
Wow.
It was an Epiphone guitar.
Yeah.
That was for sale, 6 or 7 years ago. And the estimate, I think, on it was an Epiphone. Now, it was an acoustic guitar, and he used to sit in the jacks, allegedly, and write songs on it. But there's a lot of pictures with them. It was clearly was Jimmy's guitar.
His,
and I think the estimate on it was 85,000. But the rumour must have got out, Paddy, that I'd played it, because it sold for 285,000.
Oh, I'd say so. Yeah. Yeah. Things happen like that.
Now, here's a question from someone that doesn't play guitar. When you compare,
for me,
if you're come in contact with something like Jimi Hendrix guitar compared to something you might get, say, at a sound shop in Dublin, is there a feeling of a difference to it, or is it just there's a history associated with it, or is there a sound?
You're hoping that the history will imbue some sense of musicianship in yourself. You're hoping that you will actually get the spirit of Jimi Hendrix when you're playing that guitar. Now, it may not happen, but you could delude yourself that it is happening.
You can try.
Yeah. I think it's the feeling as well to know that he had that.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I think he played that, and like I often wonder, did Jimi Hendrix say, well, this is going for sale now, Paddy Goodwin, I just can't wait till he plays it.
But for Hendrix, they were simply tools. I mean, he would never, he played a lot of new Fender Strats at the time, and they were simply tools of the trade. But, it's funny because Paul Kossoff had a fantastic white Strat.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're familiar with the Backstreet Crawler album, Paddy. He had a solo album called Backstreet Crawler.
Yeah, I heard of it. Yeah.
And he's playing that white Strat, and he, as I say, he died in 76, and the guitar went for sale in the Melody Maker in around 1977. And I had a little band going at the time, and I had a credit union loan to pay for the PA and stuff. And I think we were playing for the drums for the drummer, and the guitar was for sale in the Melody Maker. I rang up the guy; he wanted 475 quid for it. Jesus. Now, to put it in retrospect, or put it in perspective now, that guitar is now worth $250,000.
Wow,
at least, yeah.
Or at least because it was Kossoff's guitar, but he wanted 475 quid for it, and I was saying, well, look, I'm just going to see if I can organise a loan. When I went back into the credit union, said, "Oh, look, no way you can get, we have to pay off this loan before you get another one."
Yeah.
So the guy from Iron Maiden bought the guitar.
Wow.
It was a beautiful white Strat, and you would probably appreciate this. He made a complete hames of it. Wow. He painted it black and put in 2 humbuckers.
Never change.
Unbelievable.
Never.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, and I know a couple of guys in the 60s bought Fender Strats with the big stock.
Yeah.
You know them from the big stock.
That came in 64. Yeah.
And because it was getting worn away, they got it relacquered. I went, oh my God.
No, don't do that.
Now, I know a guitar player in our band, Tubby Conway, has a 1971 Strat.
Yeah.
And it is, the lacquer's cracking on it.
That's what you want.
Oh, and the only thing he changed on it was the 5-way switch. Because
Right.
it was getting a bit dirty.
Right.
But everything else is the original. You have to have the original.
Yeah.
You know, and it has to be, I'm not going to hit the counter, but it has to be American. You know, there's Mexican ones. There's the Route 66, which is made, some is made in Canada and some is made in America.
Yeah.
But you have to have the American.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's essential.
But in terms of, just to answer your question, Christy, in terms of the playability of a new instrument, it's probably more playable in actual fact.
Yeah.
But there's an aura to old guitars and proper guitars that can't be replaced. And you even have this thing now where you have them relicing guitars, which I think is just a bit of a scam, you know. Yeah. But you know,
isn't there one? Was in our good friend Conor Hughes' shop. It was a copy of Rory Gallagher's, and it was Rory had this problem with his sweat, whatever it was wearing away the lacquer and all that on the guitar. But they'd done that on the guitar, and it was €4,000, for a replica. You know, I wouldn't play unless that I could buy Rory's guitar, but I wouldn't buy a replica. But there was an incident that happened with me. Oh, every time I think of it. I bought a Fender Mustang bass.
Short scale.
Yeah. For, I think it was around about 1982.
Right.
For 60 quid.
Jesus, that's for nothing.
And it was a very old one.
Yeah.
But at the time, Lord rest him, Gino Barrows, it was all wearing away. And Gino says, you know what, you should take that down to the wood, it'd be lovely. And we did.
Yeah.
Because I was going to be using it anyway. Took it down to the wood and the whole lot, and then I went away. It was getting too small for the short scale. So I went and I bought another one, and I was using that. And I traded in the Fender against this other one. And I was sitting at home one day, and I got a call from Gino, who worked in Tommy Leddy's at the time. He says, there's a young girl after coming in with a case, a battered case. He says, and your initials is on it.
Right.
He said, because I remember it. He says, and we opened it. And he says, and there's your guitar sitting on it. And she wanted it refretted, restrung, and the intonation and everything done it. She says, and we were after looking it up. He says, it's worth about €7,000.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't get it back. In the condition it was in.
Yeah.
7,000.
Yeah. No, that's...
You know, and I said, oh my God, because someone would have got it and respray it back to what it was.
Right.
So
that's crazy.
Now I have a Fender Jazz bass. I think it's 93, but it's American.
Right. Well, they're good bass.
And I'm trying to sell it. So is there anyone out there?
Well, I have to recommend that bass. It's a very good bass.
Yeah. But not only that, you were talking about the Dobros.
Yeah.
And I never forget it. A friend of mine in Sligo, and he probably was listening to Francie Lenihan.
I know Francie.
You know Francie?
Yeah. Francie's a great character.
Yeah. Fabulous guitar player.
Great guitar player.
And Francie was looking at one of them. And he was talking to this guy, and the man said, well, I don't know, it's not in yet. He says, I want one, he says, grand. So anyway, Francie was waiting. As you know, never tell your wife that you're buying a guitar. Don't tell her it's an investment.
Don't tell them about the podcast either.
Don't. But Francie was after saying to the man, look, I have to go. He was playing with Ray Lynham at the time. And he went away anyway. But your man rang the house and says to the wife,
oh no,
the Dobro was in. She says, oh, that's grand, I'll let him know. So Francie comes back from whatever he's doing. As soon as he walked in the door, she says, come here. If you fucking think you're taking one of them dogs into this house, oh, very, very funny. He was telling us. But Ronnie Lane, we were talking there about Ronnie. It was sad to see Ronnie. Ronnie would have been with the faces, of course, and the small faces then with Rod Stewart.
Yeah.
But he was a genius.
Oh, he was fantastic.
He was unbelievable.
He did an album with Pete Townsend called Rough Mix, which
Yeah.
is just a fantastic album, just an unbelievable album, and every song is a gem on it.
Yeah.
It's just something else.
As I say, he had a big hit, and I'm sure that everyone remember in the 70s he'd won,
Yeah,
which was How Come.
yeah, that was a
And
great
it's
song.
the great run in D. Well, we used to sing it in D, and it was a great run to it. But other influences. Now, I know you like a lot of music.
Yeah.
Any type of music.
Well, blues wise, you see, I went on a journey from Horselips to Free, and Free were more blues based. And then I was lucky enough that when I was in college, I spent a few summers in Dundalk. What am I talking about? In New York. Not Dundalk.
Easily mixed.
Yeah, something similar.
we used to sing a song, Dundalk,
Yeah.
New York. But so I would have seen a lot of people. I would have seen, there was a small little club in Greenwich Village. So I saw the likes of Albert Collins there, and just a very small place, like smaller than McHugh's, because to me these people were absolute legends, and the like of Sun Seals and JB Hutto, Too Much Alcohol that Rory Gallagher covered. JB Hutto's the guy who wrote that. And strange to say and curious to relate, I ended up having a few drinks after the gig with JB Hutto. And he was telling me, oh, you know, Pat, I got an agent. And he was just so proud that he had an agent.
Yeah.
But this guy, to me, was one of the absolute legends. I think he may be on the Blues Jam and Chess, the Fleetwood Mac. He was one of the main guys. Yeah.
What was the name of that famous cafe? And the Gaslight Cafe, was it, where a lot of like Bob Dylan and a lot of those?
Well, there were a few different places down there. There was
the Troubadour.
The Troubadour, and there was the Bitter End, and there was the other. What's the other place? The Bitter End. My cousin actually worked in the Bitter End, which was owned by a guy who owned another bar called Kenny's Castaway. Pat Kenny was the guy's name, the Irish guy.
Yeah.
And in fact, at one stage, a cousin was working in this place called the Cat Club, and I was at the Jackson's World Tour opening
There you go.
in this place, the Cat Club, and I actually met Stevie Ray Vaughan that night. It was
another
incredible,
genius.
incredible. And because the cousin was working there, I was allowed in. I still have the invite to it somewhere. I must dig that out. It's incredible crack. But I loved, in terms of blues, you don't go any further than Muddy Waters. And Jimi Hendrix would have idolized Muddy Waters. And in terms of guitar playing, then it's an interesting thing you said. When was the first guitar? Well, the first electric guitar was an ES 150, and a guy called Charlie Christian, who was fantastic guitar player. But effectively, he was the first electric guitar player, and he was a major influence on Rory Gallagher. Also, a major influence on your man Derek Trucks.
Yeah.
Well, Derek Trucks, actually, his son is called Charlie Christian Trucks, so there's no more influence than you can have than that. But Charlie Christian's an incredible player, unbelievable.
But it's amazing that the amount of so many fantastic guitar players, but it's a style. They have their own style.
Yeah.
And it's sort of thing that you'd love. I'd love to play like that, but anyone can play like it if you study hard enough.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
And you can become a solicitor too.
Well, allegedly. I should have actually told you. Allegedly was my favourite word.
What about you got one of your albums there? We can show it to the people.
Yeah, sure.
It's you wrote all the songs yourself.
Wrote all the songs myself.
Is it here? It is called The Church of the Here and Now.
Yeah, I recorded it in Carlingford. Well, mostly in Carlingford. Some of it was recorded in Blackrock when Jason had the studio there.
Yeah.
Myself and Jason have been doing this for more years than I care to remember. I just have to give him the utmost praise. He's done a fantastic job in engineering and mixing it. He's done. I mean, the amount of people that have actually said to me, "Look, the mix in that is just great."
He's a very talented young man.
He's a fantastic fella. Fantastic fella.
And I'm sure he's watching this now as well. Yes.
I'm going to combine the two professions. Does being a solicitor allow you to go over your music contracts a bit more? Do you find it gives you some? Do you find it gives you a bit of hold on? Is this guy
I
screwing?
got an agent.
Is this guy screwing me here or not?
No. Well, if you're thinking that, you're entirely right.
Yeah.
Because any limited experience I have of music contracts is they're all entirely drafted against the artist.
Yeah.
And it's a question of picking up on the holes. And if you don't pick up on the holes, they're just going to screw you. And if you do pick up, then they'll say, "Oh, we didn't really mean to put that in there." Oh, yeah, we can change that. You know,
There is a lot of artists that went through bad times.
Yeah,
they ended up with nothing. You know.
Yeah.
And it is to say you must read over it.
Yeah,
because they could.
But it's the language, isn't it? Like in perpetuity and all that.
Yeah. Well, it's what I call the yes minister language. You know, why say something in 2 words that are simple when you can say it in 200 words that will confound you?
Yeah,
you know, it's a load of rubbish.
Paddy, you wrote all the songs yourself.
Yeah.
And some are from the heart.
Well, they're all from the heart.
Yeah, well, all from the heart. But there's one in particular we were talking about in the radio about a friend of yours. It is the Blue of the Night. The Blue of the Night. Yeah, well, that came about because it was during COVID and a friend of mine had died, and we were wondering whether we were going to go and stand outside the church in the funeral or what the hell we were going to do, because nobody knew what to do in those circumstances during COVID. And I was just saying, well, look, we might just ring the house and see, you know, is it all right for us to go out there? And as I'm saying that, my phone rings with my friend's name on it. And it was his wife saying, "Oh, look, we'd love to see you out of the house," but it was really strange, and that's where that song actually came from, because the first line I think is that there's a ghost calling on my telephone, but it's a very heartfelt song, I have to say. You know, it's he explained that, you know, and it was a sad time for you, but they say that when writing stuff, either sad times, happy times, you know, or even unusual times, a song can come out. You know,
yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. The title track of the album is it's another sad story, but it's the title track comes from a phrase from one of Roddy Doyle's books. He has a book called "Oh, Play That Thing Again," and the character becomes a minder for Louis Armstrong in Chicago. But along the way, he meets this rather rotund black hooker. And her phrase is, "I'm in the church of the here and now, baby." And that's where I got the phrase from.
Oh, okay. Very good.
But the actual song comes from another friend of mine who unfortunately had cancer. And he was getting chemo. And he was a very religious fella. And I'm not religious. And partly because of what happened to this guy. And he was saying, I'm going to stop this chemo. God has told me I'm going to be all right. And he was convinced that God had told him that he was going to be all right, that the cancer was gone and he didn't have to have any further treatment, and that was that, and that he was going to be grand. And he died 3 months later. And that's where that song came from.
The Church of the Here and Now. It's a great album. I'd recommend it. Mm-hmm. You can get it on iTunes, or Spotify, or Paddy's gigs, which are very good. I'm mad that I missed last Saturday night. I believe it was fantastic.
It was good crack now, Paddy. But sure, hopefully you might make
you might even get to a gig here or something.
Exactly.
But mine's a lot different now. I think we're coming close to the end. It was lovely having you here to talk about all this. What is the future for Paddy Goodwin apart from Coat?
To be honest with you, I just don't know, because we've kind of achieved so much with this that even Paul Brady was saying to me on the phone the other day, "What are you going to do now?"
Yeah,
and like 9-star review on the Hotpress, record of the week on 4 different radio stations. Really, I really don't know. I'm just going to take it all in, have a bit of crack. But you know, the one thing I have to say to you, Paddy, as well, is that only for you playing my music, that album would never have come out.
Are you only saying that?
No, I'm not. Because you constantly encourage artists around the county and indeed around the country. And it's a huge thing for people to be heard on the radio. I think I said this thing on the radio show that my mate who was playing guitar with me the other night, great guitar player, you played Ben Reel, and it ended up on his guitar solo. And my song came in with my guitar playing. And that's never happened to the two of us. And we've been playing together since 1977.
Isn't it unreal, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a huge credit to you, Paddy.
Yeah, but the reason, now I'm a musician myself, other people will say it's different, but anyway, you see, when you look, I know exactly what went into that album. I know the hard work, apart from the songwriting, the going in, the days that you weren't in good form, but you had to get it out and all that.
Yeah.
I've been on albums, I've done it, I know what is true, and I think that it's lovely to be sitting, listening to a radio, and for some guy to say, this is Paddy Goodwin's, from his new album, it is available. Instead of picking the album up and playing it and say, oh, I like this song, I like listening to this one, I love the guitar and that. But it's great that someone talks about you and says, this is his album. But what I love is, it's when people send in stuff and you listen to it and you go, oh my God. That's like, if I didn't say this was independent Irish artists, you wouldn't know.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely.
The quality. But there was a great one when Dundalk FM started off first, when we put in for the license on the community radio license. We were known as Dundalk Weekend Radio. It was DWR. We were on 107. Mm-hmm. And it was you're given 31 days of a license.
Right.
But once that month's over, you can't apply till the next month. So what we used to do was we would have a Dundalk Weekend Radio and only have it on 2 days a week, which is Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
And we kept going. And then on the Saturday, I used to have the show still actually going with Damien McKenna on the radio at the moment. It was called First Cut, as in your first album, your first cut. Mm-hmm. And I was asking on air for people to send in stuff. It was coming in on tapes and we were putting in the tapes. But there was one day this woman rang and she says, my son's playing a band. My son's a drummer and guitar player and there's 2 other guys with him and they would love to hear the stuff. I says, have they recorded it? And they said, yeah, in the loft. I says, brilliant. Send it in and I play it. So I was thinking there was a studio in Monaghan called The Loft.
Right. Tommy, I recorded it myself. Yeah. Tommy Flack.
Yeah. And I says, geez, it must be good at the time. So a couple of hours later, the mother rang back and said, look, they don't think it's good enough for your show. I said, no. I says, it's local music. I want it in. So I said, no, it doesn't sound too good. I said, look, bring it in. So they brought it in anyway, and all I could hear was the kick drum drowning everyone.
Right.
And I said, what the hell? So before the mother left and I was listening to it, I said, did the guy in the Loft studio listen to this? Says, what studio? I said, The Loft. She says, no, in the loft of the house. And I put it out on air. I said, this is incredible. I got them in to play live. Yeah. And I said, and I was talking to Jason when he was in Bridge Street. And I said to Jason, what's the best you could do? He says, I can give you 2 hours. I says, how much? And at the time, that was nearly 20 years ago, he says, 100 punts.
Right.
I says, grand. And I put it out on air. And when in, I'd say 2 hours, I got 100 punts, people sending in money, and the boys recorded, and then they broke up.
Oh,
wow.
Jesus.
That's lovely story, but then...
Yeah. But they're still playing about, but it was lovely that the kids just wanted to be heard on the radio.
Yeah, yeah.
And then to be, I've seen myself on pirate radios being asked in to talk about something, and your nerves are gone, you think, am I going to say things right? But radio stations, the fella behind the mic is just the same as the guest.
Yeah.
He's worried what you're going to say.
Yeah, what's he going to come out with next? Allegedly.
Yeah,
Allegedly.
allegedly.
Yeah. And don't say anything liable. And then it says, you're like, what? You'll know when I tell you.
You'll know when I shit.
Yeah, and a lot of it at the moment. But Paddy, it was a pleasure having you in.
Well, listen, thanks very much.
And
Paddy.
listen, long may the radio stations play this, because it is a fantastic album. Get your hands on this. And a great production done by Jason. And it's Paddy Goodwin and the Holy Ghost. Where did the Holy Ghost come from?
Holy Ghost came from the fact that I wanted to inspire young people to come up and play guitar. And in the initial gigs, we always used to have, invariably be the sons of friends of mine, and they'd come up and they'd do one number, and I'd make a big deal of them. And also, I've been trying to encourage people like myself that had played years ago, but have got out of practice and need a good kick in the ass to get back on stage.
Good session.
And that's where it comes from, trying to inspire people to play.
Oh, I thought it was just him in the band, the father or something. It was a three-piece band. Well, listen, Paddy, thank you for coming in to the Salvation Show, and the best of luck to you with your album. And as I say, if you do get a chance, go and see the gig. Paddy is live, a great show. And good luck to Jason as well. If you want to record an album, Jason Barley. It's called the Shop Recording Studio in Carrick.
Yeah, can't recommend Jason more highly.
Yeah. So it's goodbye from me, Paddy Mack.
And goodbye from me, Paddy Goodwin. Thanks very much, Paddy.